In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between thin and thick questions and how to incorporate both types of questions, especially using a character analysis. So, thin and thick questions, this is not a new concept. We used to call them literal and abstract, concrete and abstract, but we are now calling them thin and thick questions, and I don't know why. But anyway, so your thin questions are your literal or your concrete questions. In my class, we call them our surface answers, and they have right or wrong answers. So when did the story take place? Who are the characters? What is the conflict? And sometimes what is the conflict can be a thick question, but you know, what time did this happen? What room did this happen? Those are our literal questions. Our thick questions are more the abstract questions, and we call these our pondering questions, that they don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer. Things like, did you like this character? Why or why not? What do you think would happen if so-and-so did X, Y, and Z? Where can you see the change in attitudes? Things like that. So we do incorporate both these types of questions when we're doing a character analysis. Now, one of the things I've noticed about character analysis is that kids have no idea where to start. So I actually give them a character analysis sheet. This sheet here, which I use in my class, and we did this in class together, has helped my students a lot. Now, this is based on the story Gumption, and if you haven't read the story, it's a fantastic story. It's written about the Depression era in the South, and it's about a black family. And so a lot of themes are going on in there, but and the kids really like this story too. So the whole story is being told by this woman named Clara, who's telling a story to somebody else that she heard from someone else. So it's all hearsay. But the main character is Oyster. Oyster's this old black man. He worked really hard to send his son to college. His son went to college, became a bookkeeper, then the Depression hit, and now they don't have jobs, and the WPA is discriminating against them. So when we're looking at this, and I want them to analyze the character of Oyster, I actually put it in so they know exactly who we're talking about here. Now, what they don't see is, you see where it says here, thin, thick, those types of questions. I don't put that in. That's just for this recording, so you know what we're looking at here. So what does Oyster do? That's a thin question. Kids can usually figure out what Oyster's doing. What does Oyster say? Okay, again, kids can generally point to something in the story and say it. What does Oyster think? Now, this could be construed, I put thin on here, but it could be construed as thin or thick, because some of the things are done by hearsay, so we're just assuming this is what he's thinking, and that can be construed as a thick question, more abstract. But there's a lot of things that we could point to and just be like, right here, this is what it says, so it shows us what he's thinking. What do other characters say to Oyster? And here we have to make some inferences, okay? Because again, it's all hearsay, so some of them we do make some inferences on what are they saying and interpreting what they are saying. Not just, okay, this is what the WPA man said, but what did he mean when he said that? So we do some interpretation there. How does Oyster interact with others? Again, that's a pretty thin question because we can point, this is how he reacts when the WPA is discriminating against his son. This is how he acts when after, you know, he has the discrimination, he can't work for the WPA. What choices does he make? Again, thin questions. What are the consequences to these choices? And again, we're making some inferences here. What I like about this chart with kids is, one, I set it up for them. So I put the character right in. So if I wanted to do another character in there, like Charlie, which is his son, or Clara, who's telling the story, or anything like that, I could do that. And so the kids know exactly what we're talking about here. It also helps on just identifying one character and exactly what do we need to look at when we're looking at the character. Okay? What do they do? What do they say? What do other people say about them? What do we think about that person? It highlights it right here. And one of the things I encourage the kids to do is not worry about complete sentences here. I know, English teacher, always complete sentences. Right here, no, I just want them to jot down their ideas. What one or two things do you notice about this? Put page numbers in so you can find the quotes later for your paragraphs. Okay? So that's how I kind of do the character analysis sheet. So again, the difference between the thin and thick questions, the thin questions are questions that are very concrete. Our thick questions, we're using more reading strategies like inferences, drawing conclusions, those types of things, supporting our answers with evidence from the text. And I try to incorporate both of these into my class when we have a connection. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.